What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with Tech Daily, and in this video, we are checking out the new Samsung Galaxy A52. This is, of course, the successor to last year's crazy popular A51, which was one of my favorite devices. I've been eagerly awaiting the release of this new A52. I know you guys have as well, so I won't waste any more time. Let's just go ahead and get right into it and unbox this thing and see what this phone has to offer. Now, right off the bat, I do want to mention that this device right here is the international version of this phone, and it's the 4G variant, not the 5G variant. I'll do a separate video on the A52 5G when I have it, and also explain some of the differences with this phone too, of course. But first things first, sliding off the lid of the box here, we are immediately greeted by the A52 itself. Obviously, I got mine in this black color, but it also is available in white, violet, and blue, and those are all colors we've seen before, but still a nice selection of options. Digging a little deeper inside the box, you'll see just a couple of accessories included. There's a regular old USB-A to USB-C cable, and actually the old style USB wall plug as well, even though this A52 does support the faster 25-watt charging standard. Also, inside the lid of the box is where you'll find one more little packet of things. The SIM ejector tool is fashioned to the outside of the package there if you need it, and inside there's just your usual stack of paperwork, instructions, and information. Unfortunately, at least with this international version of the A52, we didn't get an included clear case for the phone. So with all that stuff out of the way, here is the new A52 once again, and I have to say, I really like what Samsung did with this new phone. For those of you who had the A51 from last year, or at least are maybe familiar with it, you can probably tell we did get a fairly fresh new design, which I think makes this phone look even more premium. There's also a bunch of new features and upgraded specs as well, and honestly, I think this device will once again be one of the best mid-range smartphones on the market this year. This new A52 is a 6.5-inch smartphone. That's the screen size. It's the same as last year, and at least up front, things do look somewhat familiar. You've got that hole punch camera cutout up top, which looks to be a little bit smaller in size. There's fairly slim bezels all around, and a slight bottom chin, though it isn't too noticeable. If you do want to get nitpicky, it does appear to me at least that the bezels and borders along the entire display are a tiny bit thicker than last year, but a lot of what you see is actually just the product of a thicker, beefier housing and frame as well. This phone is thicker, it's chunkier, it's more squared off and boxy, it's heavier as well. It just feels really great in the hand. And the metal frame with the polished finish, I think gives this device a super premium vibe. Around back, the A52 gets that matte plastic rear cover that pretty much all Samsung phones have nowadays. At this point, I don't really mind the plastic. It's exactly the same as the S21 and the Note series. And in my opinion, although I did like the glossy rainbow A series designs of years past, this new design makes it look way more like a flagship phone than ever before. Also, one new physical feature of the A52 is water and dust resistance. You now have an IP67 rating on this phone. That's actually not something ever offered on the A series before. So durability-wise, this device should be able to handle some accidental splashes. Taking a closer look at everything else, there's nothing on the left side of the phone, but on the right you'll find the usual power and volume buttons. Across the top, there's the SIM and SD card tray. This international version of the A52 has that combo dual SIM or one SIM and one SD card setup there. Down below, the headphone jack remains, as well as the USB-C port for charging and downward-facing speaker. The earpiece on the A52 does double as a secondary speaker, so dual stereo speakers on this phone, which is great, something I know I've asked for before, and I'm super happy to see. The out loud listening experience on this device is just awesome. Here's a quick sound sample so you can get an idea. And around back, we get quite the upgraded cameras here. Quad lens setup, which I'll go more in depth with in just a minute. The camera bump actually isn't too bad, even though it looks pretty big. The module isn't all that tall or thick. It doesn't stick out too far. It's also the same matte plastic as the rest of the back, just with the little silver colored accent rings around the lenses. As far as unlocking, we do get the in-display fingerprint reader once again, and this to me feels pretty quick. It's definitely an improvement over last year. Maybe not quite as fast as the instant tap of the flagship S21s, but seemingly very accurate and certainly quick enough in my initial tests here. So that's great to see. Also, you do have face unlock, of course, too. That is very fast as well. So any which way you want to unlock this phone, I think the biometrics are very snappy and certainly feel upgraded. I do also want to mention that there is a pre-installed screen protector on this device like we did have last year. It's really hard to see, but it is there. And while last year's screen protector I felt was maybe a little lower quality, this one on the new device seems way nicer and plays a lot friendlier with that in-display fingerprint reader as well. So all in all, lots of great improvements here. Now, in regards to the display itself, we do get one more really awesome sort of upgrade or new feature for this phone, and that's a 90 Hz high refresh rate mode. This super smooth and snappy screen feel has come to a lot of other devices in this price range now, and I'm really glad Samsung brought this option to the A52. And in fact, while this 4G version of the A52 has the 90 Hz option, the higher end 5G version of the A52 has the 120 Hz mode, which is even better. Still, I think just the 90 Hz refresh rate on this phone in general is really great. I think most people will be able to feel and see the difference between 60 and 90 Hz, or motion smoothness as Samsung dubs it in settings if you're looking for it. And all in all, this is a great addition to this phone that I know a lot of people will enjoy. It's certainly something I appreciate now more than ever, to say the least. The actual screen itself is solid too. It's a 6.5-inch Super AMOLED panel with a resolution of 2400 by 1080, packing in around 407 pixels per inch. And this is the same whether you get the 4G or 5G version of this device, so that's awesome. And to me, the A52 looks bolder, brighter, and seems to offer an even better viewing experience over last year. At around 800 nits of max brightness, I think that's plenty to enjoy outdoors in the sunlight with no issues. The screen itself is now covered in Gorilla Glass 5 this time around. There's no off-axis angle issues. This is a fantastic screen setup, and it's exactly what Samsung is known for, both on their flagship phones and particularly on these A-series devices. I don't see any compromises here with the display whatsoever. The viewing experience is fantastic. And in fact, I really do think this is a benchmark in the mid-range smartphone space. The display really is that good. Inside, this new A52 also gets some upgraded internals as well, like you might expect. The 4G version of this phone, the one I have here, is powered by the Qualcomm Snapdragon 720G chipset. The 5G version of the A52 gets the slightly more powerful 750G, and you have the option to configure 4, 6, or 8 gigs of RAM with 128 or 256 gigabytes of internal storage. Out of the box, the A52 does ship with all the latest updates: Android 11, Samsung's One UI 3.1, and that means this phone, of course, feels fast and fluid. All in all, I actually think this combination of specs is great for this phone. It's a lot of bang for your buck. Qualcomm's 700 series processors in general are really solid. I know this phone is going to be able to handle anything and everything I throw at it. And actually, given Samsung's commitment to software updates and support, I suspect this phone will be a solid 3 or 4 year investment, maybe even longer than that. Also, powering this phone now is a larger 4500 milliamp battery. So as good as the battery life was on my A51 last year, there's a chance that things are even better this year with the increased capacity. Obviously, the high refresh rate display will eat into the battery life a bit more. That's something that's shown to you on the settings page if you do enable 90 Hz, but I think the increase in capacity helps combat that, and battery conscious users who maybe aren't that interested in 90 Hz to begin with will really get a lot of life out of this phone with that increased capacity. And I'm excited to put everything to the test to see what this thing is capable of. Like I mentioned already, the downside is that you don't get the faster charger included in the box, which is a a bit of a bummer. There's also no wireless charging here either on this phone, though I can look past that. It's not something I really care about, but collectively 99% of the internal specs with this new A52 are solid upgrades over the A51, and I'm really excited about that. Finally, let's talk cameras. Obviously, that crazy rear setup is one of the defining physical features of this phone, and like almost everything else, we do get some nice upgrades and new additions here too. First off, with the specs, the main lens is now a 64 megapixel f1.8 aperture shooter. There's the 12 megapixel ultra wide lens, 5 megapixel macro lens, and the 5 megapixel depth sensor, all of which we've seen before, and they're all positioned near that LED flash. Up front, the selfie camera seems to be the familiar 32 megapixel f2.2 aperture lens as well. Obviously, the camera capabilities are plentiful, and I would say that while it's not the over-the-top flagship setup of like the S21 Ultra, there's still a ton of great stuff here. Interestingly enough, the very first camera mode now on this phone is this fun filters mode. I'm not sure I've seen that so prominently positioned in the app before, but there you go. Beyond that, you can see up to 10 times zoom capabilities, which is super useful. All the rest of Samsung's family of camera modes and features are there, including Pro Controls, Night Mode, Pro Video, Super Slow-Mo, Portrait, various other filters, and inside the settings you can see even more great stuff. Enhanced video stabilization, HDR, 4K video recording is there. You can utilize a 64 megapixel shooting mode, and just snapping some super quick sample pictures here, I really like what I'm seeing. Although the selfie camera appears to be the same setup as before, I think the results do look even better. They're more natural, with more detail. I look a little less pale than before, and the rear camera really produces some nice looking shots too. Again, it's not quite flagship caliber, but honestly, it was the camera capabilities that I thought were some of the most underrated features of last year's high-end A-series phones. And once again, this year, Samsung is just bringing a lot with the camera capabilities on their A-series phones. This might be one of the most capable camera setups on a device in this price range, and I'm super excited to put that to the test and see what all it can do. So if you couldn't already tell, I'm obviously super excited for this phone. The A51 and A71 were both two of my favorite devices last year, and it seems to me, at least with the new A52, that Samsung brought all the right upgrades and changes, and perhaps even a bit more. I think this is absolutely, once again, one of the best value smartphones on the market, and I'm really interested to try it out over these next few days and see what all it can do. But what do you guys think? Is this the phone you've been waiting for? Are you going to be buying the A52 when you have the chance? Let me know what you think about this phone in the comments down below. I'd love to know your thoughts, of course. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this quick unboxing and first impressions of this device. Be sure to follow Tech Daily on Twitter and subscribe to the Tech Daily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.